The world came back in fragments, muffled thunder, copper taste, sand in her teeth. Sergeant Riley Cross opened her eyes to a wall of flame 20 meters out. She tried to move. Half her body was buried in scorching sand. The Humvee was a burning skeleton. Bodies lay scattered in the dust. Mendez, Kowalski, the kid from Michigan. Riley clawed at the sand. Her rifle, where was her rifle? The MK-22 ASR lay beside her, snapped clean in half. Movement. 30 meters left. Master Sergeant Elias St. Graves dragged himself from the wreckage, face slicked with blood. He locked eyes with her across the kill zone. No radio, no backup, no water, just 40 kilometers of hostile desert and the sun climbing toward noon. The drone feed flickered on the tablet screen, thermal blooms pulsing like diseased hearts across the Niger landscape. Riley Cross adjusted the polarized lens on her scope mount and checked the Kestrel meter clipped to her vest. Wind speed, humidity, barometric pressure, all feeding into the ballistic calculator on her wrist. Everything by the numbers. That's how you stayed alive. You gonna marry that thing or shoot with it? Saint's voice drifted across the sandbag barrier, dry as the dust coating their forward operating base. Master Sergeant Elias Graves sat cross-legged on an ammo crate, cleaning his rifle with a rag that had seen better decades. No gadgets, no computers, just oil, cloth, and 30 years of muscle memory. The FOB sprawled around them in concentric rings of HESCO barriers and concertina wire, a temporary footprint in a permanent desert. Dust coated everything: solar panels, communications equipment, the flag hanging limp in the dead air. They've been here 6 months, part of AFRICOM's effort to train local forces in monitor emerging threats. Translated, sit in the middle of nowhere and watch bad guys do bad things from a distance. Riley didn't look up from her tablet. Data doesn't lie, Saint. Winds shifting northeast at 7 knots. Humidity's dropping. That changes my dope by 0.3 mils at 800 meters. And if your battery dies? I carry spares. She patted the pouch on her vest. 3 backup batteries, each good for 48 hours of continuous use, plus a solar charger, plus the charge pack in her ruck. She'd done the math. 72 hours of operational time before she needed to worry. And if those die? Riley finally met his eyes. They were the color of desert stone, flat and patient. Lines carved deep around his mouth, sun damage that came from 3 decades of deployments to places that didn't appear on tourist maps. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia. The man was a living catalog of America's forever wars. Then I adapt, she said. Saint grunted, working the bolt on his rifle, an older model M24 he'd carried since before Riley was born. The weapon was scarred, the finish worn to bare metal in places, but it moved like silk. No optic, just iron sights and a loopholed scope older than Riley's military career. Adaptation's what you do when the tech fails, Trigger, not after. She hated that call sign. Trigger. Like she was some fresh boot who flinched at loud noises. She'd earned her slot as a scout sniper through scores, not sentiment. Top of her class at Camp Lejeune, expert marksman at 1,000 meters. Every shot calculated, every variable accounted for. She'd beat out 17 men for this deployment, proved herself on every range, every test, every evaluation. But Saint still called her Trigger. Because on her first day at the FOB, she'd missed a target at 600 meters. The wind had shifted mid-shot, and her computer hadn't updated fast enough. The round went wide by 4 inches. 4 inches. In combat, that was the difference between a kill and a miss, between mission success and body bags. I don't plan on my gear failing, she said, voice tight. Nobody does. Saint stood, slinging his rifle with the ease of long practice. The weapon settled against his back like it had grown there. That's why it always does. He walked away, boots crunching on gravel, leaving Riley alone with her tablet and her certainty. She looked down at the screen. The numbers glowed back at her, crisp and reassuring. Wind, 7.2 knots. Temperature, 38 degrees Celsius. Barometric pressure, 1,013 millibars. She could calculate trajectory, compensate for Coriolis effect, account for barrel heat and ammunition temperature down to the 10th of a degree. The math didn't lie. The math kept you alive. She told herself that and tried to believe it. The ops briefing was routine. Another milk run through the gray zone between Mali and Niger. Checking villages, the drones flagged as suspicious activity. AFRICOM wanted eyes-on confirmation before they sent the gunships. That meant Riley, Saint, and a four-man security element in 2 Humvees. Captain Vickers stood at the front of the briefing tent, pointer tapping a satellite map tacked to a plywood board. The tent smelled like sweat and diesel fuel, canvas walls doing nothing to block the afternoon heat. A portable air conditioner rattled in the corner, pushing lukewarm air that barely registered. Village is here. Vickers tapped a cluster of gray squares 40 clicks northwest. 8 structures, no visible population. Thermal shows residual heat signatures consistent with recent occupation. Could be ISGS using it as a waypoint. Islamic State in the Greater Sahara, the local flavor of nightmare. They've been ramping up attacks along the border, ambushes, kidnappings, IEDs. Last month they'd hit a French convoy, killed 4 soldiers and melted back into the desert before air support could arrive. ROE? Saint asked, voice flat. Observe and report. No offensive action unless engaged. You see armed combatants, you mark the grid and pull back. Air assets will handle cleanup. Vickers looked at Riley. Cross, your overwatch. Graves, your ground command. Security team stays with the vehicles. Riley nodded, already calculating. 800 meters from the nearest ridgeline. Perfect sniper perch. She'd set up the Mk-22 ASR, glass the village through the dayscope, tag any threats with the IR laser for the drones overhead. The Reaper would be on station, feeding real-time intel to the TOC. If anything moved, they'd see it before it became a problem. Simple, clean, by the numbers. The security element sat in folding chairs along the tent's perimeter. Sergeant Mendez, stocky, tattooed, from Houston. Corporal Kowalski, pale, sunburned, always chewing gum. Specialist Hernandez, quiet, competent, never spoke unless spoken to. And the FNG everyone called Michigan because nobody could pronounce his actual name. A kid fresh out of basic, maybe 20 years old, who still flinched at loud noises. Questions? Vickers asked. Nobody spoke. This was their 3rd recon patrol this week. They knew the drill. Wheels up at 0500. Dismissed. After the briefing, Saint caught Riley by the motor pool. The Humvees sat idle, heat rippling off their armored hoods. Mechanics swarmed over one of them, replacing a blown tire. The air stank of oil and hot metal. You ever shoot without that computer? Saint asked. Riley patted the ballistic calculator on her wrist. The device looked like an oversized watch, its screen packed with data readouts. Why would I? Humor an old man. She sighed, pulling out her primary weapon, the Mk-22 ASR, all matte black rails and precision engineering. Advanced modular rifle system, chambered in .0. 308, capable of sub-MOA accuracy at 1,000 meters. It felt like holding the future. 16 pounds fully loaded, but perfectly balanced. She could field strip and reassemble it blindfolded in under 2 minutes. Saint gestured to the range, a row of steel targets shimmering in the distance past the perimeter wire. 600 meters, no computer, just you and the rifle. That's stupid. That's training. Riley bit back a response. She could do this in her sleep. She'd qualified expert at Camp Lejeune, shot perfect scores at Quantico. But those were with her tools, her systems. The ballistic computer did the math instantly. Wind drift, bullet drop, even the spin drift from the rifling. Without it, she was guessing. Still, she settled into position, cheek against the stock. The rifle was heavier without the tablet prop beside her, without the wind readout in her peripheral vision. Just iron sights and instinct. She breathed. In, out. Felt the wind on her left cheek. Maybe 5 knots, maybe 6. Temperature was dropping as the sun lowered. That would affect air density, change the bullet's flight path by... Stop thinking. Just shoot. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. The target pinged, but off-center, 6 inches low and right. Wind, Saint said quietly, standing behind her. You felt it on your face but didn't trust it. Riley chambered another round, angry now. She knew the wind. She'd checked it 50 times today. Northeast at 7 knots, gusting to 9. The second shot hit low. Breathing. You held too long. Starved your brain of oxygen. Made your hands shake. She wanted to argue, but he was right. She'd held her breath for 15 seconds, trying to time the shot between heartbeats. By the time she pulled the trigger, her vision had started to tunnel. The third shot punched center mass. Better, Saint nodded. Now do it 40 more times when you're bleeding, and the sun's cooking your brain, and the last thing you ate was a scorpion you killed with a rock. Riley safed the rifle, jaw tight. I get it. Old school's better. Tech's a crutch. Tech's a tool, Saint corrected. He pulled a canteen from his belt, took a long drink, then offered it to her. The water was hot, tasted like plastic. But out here? He nodded toward the horizon, where the desert bled into haze. The desert doesn't care about your battery's trigger. It'll kill you with or without a computer. Best you learn to kill back. She drank, handed back the canteen. How many times have you done this? Deployed to some sandbox in the middle of nowhere? Lost count after 12. Saint wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Iraq 3 times. Afghanistan 4. Yemen. Somalia. Syria. Now here. Different deserts. Same war. Ever lose your gear? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Fallujah, 2004. IED took out our convoy. Lost my rifle, my pack, my boots. Walked 7 miles in socks before we got picked up. Feet looked like hamburger for a month. But you made it. Because I knew how to navigate by stars, how to find water, how to move without a GPS telling me which way was north. He tapped her ballistic computer. That thing makes you smart, but it doesn't make you dangerous. You want to be dangerous, you got to learn to think like the desert. Think like the desert, Riley repeated. Yeah, mean, patient, always hungry. They rolled out at 0500 when the air was still cool enough to breathe without cooking your lungs. 2 Humvees, 7 personnel. Riley rode in the lead vehicle, Saint in trail. The security element, Mendez, Kowalski, Hernandez in Michigan, rode spread between both trucks, rifles up, scanning the empty desert. Empty. That was a lie the desert told. Riley had learned that much in 6 months at this fob. The sand hid everything. IEDs, fighters, entire supply networks for jihadist groups that ghosted across borders like wind. The Humvee rocked over uneven terrain, suspension groaning. Riley sat in the turret position, MK-22 resting across her lap, scanning through the scope. The desert rolled past in shades of brown and gray, sand dunes, gravel plains, the occasional thorn bush clinging to life in the waste. Her tablet was mounted to the dash, showing the drone feed in real time. The Reaper circled 3,000 feet overhead, its thermal camera painting the world in whites and blacks. The village showed as 8 gray rectangles in a loose cluster. No heat signatures, no movement. The village was 40 clicks northwest, near the Niger-Mali border. No man's land. The kind of place where governments pretended they had control, and everyone else knew better. French forces patrolled the area occasionally, but mostly it was left to local militias and whoever had the most guns. ISGS had been using these border regions for years, moving fighters, weapons, supplies. They'd attack a target in Mali, then vanish into Niger before anyone could respond. Or vice versa. The borders were just lines on maps. Out here they meant nothing. Riley kept her eyes on the tablet, watching the thermal feed. Still nothing. The village looked dead. "TOC, this is Reaper 6, she radioed. 30 mics from objective. Drone shows cold. "Copy, Reaper 6, maintain approach." The radio crackled with static, then fell silent. Riley adjusted her headset, wiped sweat from her forehead. Even at dawn, the temperature was climbing fast. By noon, it would hit 40 degrees Celsius. By afternoon, 50. Saint's voice crackled on the team freak. "You see that ridge line at our 10 o'clock? Riley looked up from the screen. A jagged spine of rock jutted from the sand, maybe 2 clicks out. It rose 30 meters above the desert floor, all sharp angles and shadow. Perfect overwatch. Perfect sniper hide. Yeah, good position. Too good. If I were setting an ambush, that's where I'd put the heavy gun." Riley scanned the ridgeline through her rifle scope, zooming to maximum magnification. Nothing. No glint of metal, no movement, just rock and shadow and heat shimmer. "Drones not showing thermal," she said. "Drones looking at the village, not the high ground." She keyed the talk. "Reaper 6 requesting drone reposition. We've got elevated terrain northeast that needs a once-over." Static. Then, "Negative, Reaper 6. Asset is tasked for village surveillance. Maintain mission." Saint's sigh was audible over the radio. "And that's how people die." But nothing happened. They rolled past the ridgeline, past the open wadi where the sand turned to gravel and thorn scrub. The village appeared on the horizon. 8 flat-roofed structures the color of old bone. No doors, no windows. Abandoned. Riley's instincts itched. The place looked too empty, too clean. Like a stage set waiting for actors. "Graves, you seeing this?" she murmured. "Yeah, too quiet." In the back seat, Mendez shifted his rifle. "Maybe they moved on." "Maybe," Saint said, but he didn't sound convinced. "TOC Reaper 6, village appears deserted, requesting permission to recon on foot." "Stand by, Reaper 6. They waited. The sun climbed higher, turning the air to soup. Riley's hand drifted to her water bottle, a 3-liter Camelback in her pack. Enough for a day in this heat if she rationed. Saint had taught her that. Sip, don't gulp. Wet your lips, don't swallow. Make every drop count. "Reaper 6, you're clear for foot recon. Keep it tight." Riley keyed the mic twice in acknowledgement. The Humvees rolled to a stop 50 meters from the village perimeter, engines idling. Dust settled around them like fog. Saint dismounted first, rifle up, scanning the village through his optic. The security team fanned out, covering sectors. Mendez north, Kowalski south, Hernandez east, Michigan west. Standard diamond formation, textbook. Riley stayed with the lead Humvee, MK-22 trained on the nearest structure. Through the scope, she watched Saint move. Slow, deliberate, every step calculated. He checked corners, marked firing positions with hand signals, moved like water through the gaps between buildings. This was his element. Not the tech, not the drones, just dirt, instinct, and experience. He'd been doing this since before Riley was born, and it showed in every movement. "Building 1 clear," he reported, voice calm on the radio. The first structure was small, maybe 4 meters square. Mud brick walls, tin roof half collapsed, empty inside except for sand and scorpions. "Building 2 clear," larger but the same. Nothing. The third building was different. Saint paused at the entrance, held up a fist. Everyone froze, rifles tracking toward him. "Tracks," he said quietly. "Fresh, multiple personnel, maybe 6 hours old." Riley's pulse kicked up. She zoomed her scope, scanning the thermal through the tablet. Still nothing. But thermal only showed heat. It didn't show footprints in the dust. Could be nomads, Mendez offered over the radio. Nomads don't wear Solomon boots, Saint replied. These are tactical prints, size 10, 10 and a half, heavy tread pattern, military or paramilitary. He moved inside, rifle up, scanning. Riley watched through her scope, finger on the trigger, ready to drop anyone who appeared in the doorway. 10 seconds. 20. Saint, talk to me, Riley said. You need to see this. She secured the rifle, dismounted, and jogged to Building 3. The interior was dark after the glare outside, cooler by maybe 5 degrees. The floor was hard-packed dirt, scattered with debris, empty ration wrappers, MRE bags, a crushed water bottle with Arabic script. Someone had been here recently, and they'd been eating American food. Saint stood in the corner, pointing at the wall. Riley approached, saw what he was looking at, and felt her stomach drop. Scratched into the mud plaster was a map. Not professional, done with charcoal or a knife tip, but clear enough. It showed the road they'd taken from the fob, marked with an X, and 20 clicks southeast, another mark, a rough square with lines radiating outward, a grid coordinate. Riley pulled out her tablet, cross-referenced the position against her GPS. The coordinates resolved into a familiar shape, their forward operating base. They've been watching us, she said, voice tight, planning something. Saint nodded, jaw set. They know our patrol routes, our vehicle count, probably our shift rotations. He pointed to smaller marks along the route. These are likely ambush points. They've war-gamed this. We need to call this in. Already did. Saint tapped his radio. TOC's scrambling a reaction force. QRF will be here in 90 minutes. We're supposed to hold position until they arrive. How long? 90 minutes. Riley glanced at the entrance, at the open desert beyond. 90 minutes in a static position, exposed, in a village that had been used as a planning site for an attack on their base. Every instinct she had was screaming to move, to get out, to not sit still. But orders were orders. This feels wrong, she said. Yeah. Saint checked his rifle, chambered around. It does. They set a defensive perimeter, Humvees nose to tail, forming a makeshift barricade. Security teams spread in a loose arc, rifles trained outward. Mendez took north, Kowalski south, Hernandez east, Michigan west. Riley climbed to the roof of Building 3 with her rifle, settling into a prone position behind a low parapet. From here she had clear sight lines in 3 directions, north, east, south. West was blocked by the other buildings, but Saint had that covered from ground level. She glassed the desert through her scope, searching for threats. Nothing. Just heat shimmer and thorn scrub, and the occasional dust devil spinning across the flats. Her tablet sat beside her, propped against a rock. The drone feed showed the same thing her eyes did. Empty desert. No thermal signatures, no movement. But they were out there. She could feel it. Saint stood by the lead Humvee, talking into the radio. His expression was carved from stone. Riley couldn't hear the conversation, but she could read his body language. Tense, alert, ready. The first 10 minutes passed in silence. Then 20, 30. Riley sipped water, felt it warm in her mouth. The sun was climbing fast now, turning the air into a physical weight. Sweat soaked through her uniform, stinging her eyes. She blinked it away, refocused on the scope. 40 minutes. 50. Then Saint's voice, sharp and sudden. Movement, east side, 300 meters. Riley swung her scope east. At first she saw nothing. Then, there, a figure, low crawling through the scrub brush. Then another, and another. I count 6, she reported, voice steady despite the adrenaline dump. Armed, AKs and, wait, is that an RPG? Call it in. Riley keyed the radio. TOC, Reaper 6. We have visual on armed combatants. 6 personnel, small arms and RPG, requesting immediate air support. Reaper 6, Razor flight is 15 mics out. Can you hold? 15 minutes. Riley did the math. The combatants were 300 meters out, moving at a low crawl, maybe 2 minutes before they reached effective RPG range. Negative, they're closing fast. We need that air now. Reaper 6, Razor is pushing hard. Do what you can. Riley switched to the team freak. Saint, air support is 15 out. We're on our own. Copy. His voice was calm. Too calm. Everyone hold fire until my command. Let them close to 200 meters. I want clean shots. The combatants kept moving, low and slow, using the terrain for cover. Professional. Trained. 250 meters. 200. One of them stopped, raised the RPG tube to his shoulder. Riley centered the crosshairs on his chest, finger on the trigger. She could take the shot, drop him before he fired. But if she did, the others would scatter, find cover, and turn this into a protracted firefight. Saint must have been thinking the same thing. All units, suppressive fire on my mark. The enemy combatant pulled the trigger. The RPG streaked toward them, a finger of smoke and hate trailing behind. Riley tracked it through the scope, saw it arc upward, then down, and slam into the lead Humvee's engine block. The explosion was deafening, a rolling boom that rattled Riley's teeth, followed by a wave of heat and pressure. The Humvee lifted off its front wheels, flipped sideways, crashed down in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Fire bloomed from the engine compartment. The shockwave hit Riley like a fist, sent her tumbling backward off the roof. She fell 3 meters, landed hard on packed earth, all the air driven from her lungs. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her ears rang like church bells. The world tilted. She tasted blood. Gunfire, screaming, the crack, crack, crack of Saint's rifle on semi-auto. Riley rolled onto her stomach, forced herself to hands and knees. Her rifle, where was her rifle? There, 5 meters away, lying in the dust. She crawled to it, fingers closing around the stock. The weapon was hot from the sun, almost too hot to hold. She pulled it close, checked the chamber. Still loaded, still functional. More gunfire. Closer now. Riley forced herself up, back against the wall of Building 3. Her vision swam. She blinked, forced focus. The security team was pinned behind the overturned Humvee, taking fire from 3 sides. Mendez went down, clutching his leg, blood spurting between his fingers. Kowalski dragged him behind cover, returned fire with his M4. The second Humvee sat 30 meters away, engine still running. Michigan and Hernandez were inside, trying to reposition. The world exploded again. Not an RPG, bigger, much bigger. The ground beneath the second Humvee erupted in a geyser of fire and dirt. The truck disintegrated, torn apart by a buried IED, maybe 100 pounds of homemade explosive wrapped in ball bearings in scrap metal. The blast wave rolled over Riley like a tsunami. She was airborne, tumbling, then slamming into something hard. Her head bounced off stone. Stars exploded across her vision. When she could see again, the second Humvee was gone. Just a smoking crater and pieces of metal scattered across the sand. Michigan and Hernandez were gone too. Riley tried to key her radio. "TOC, this is Reaper 6. Static. The radio was dead, fried by the blast. She pulled out her tablet, cracked screen, no signal. Her GPS watch, screen blank. Every piece of electronics she'd brought, every tool she'd relied on, was dead. All she had left was her rifle and the rounds in her mag. Riley fired blind, snapping shots at muzzle flashes in the smoke. The MK-22 bucked against her shoulder, ejecting brass that pinged off the stones. She didn't have time to calculate windage or elevation, to check her ballistic computer or measure the distance. Just point and shoot. One target dropped, clutching his chest. Then another. But there were too many. At least a dozen now, moving through the smoke, AKs chattering on full auto. Rounds kicked up dust around Riley's feet, sparked off the wall beside her head. She ducked back into cover, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from the adrenaline crash after the blast. Her whole body felt like it had been hit by a truck. Movement to her left. Saint appeared through the smoke, face streaked black with soot and blood. A gash above his right eye leaked red down his cheek. "We need to move," he shouted over the gunfire. "Where?" "Anywhere but here." He grabbed her by the vest, hauled her up. "Kowalski! Mendez! On me!" Kowalski appeared, half dragging Mendez. The sergeant's leg was shredded, bone visible through torn fabric. His face was gray with shock, but he was still conscious, still gripping his rifle. "Can you run?" Saint asked him. "Can I?" Mendez coughed, spat blood. "Yeah, I can run." They ran, away from the burning Humvees, away from the village, into the open desert. It was suicide. No cover, no concealment, just flat sand stretching to the horizon. But staying meant dying, so they ran. Rounds cracked past Riley's head, stitched the sand at her feet. She stumbled, caught herself, kept running. Her lungs burned. Her legs felt like lead. Behind them, the enemy was pursuing. She could hear them shouting in Arabic, the rattle of AKs, the crump of grenades. They made it 200 meters before Mendez collapsed. Saint and Kowalski tried to lift him. He screamed, a raw animal sound that cut through the gunfire. His leg wasn't just broken, it was destroyed. Shattered femur, severed artery. Every movement sent fresh blood pumping from the wound. "Leave me," Mendez gasped. His skin was the color of old paper. Shock was setting in. "You can't carry me, just go." "Shut up," Saint said, trying to get leverage. But when he lifted, Mendez screamed again, and Saint had to set him down. The blood was pooling now, soaking into the sand. Saint looked at Riley. His eyes said everything. "We can't carry him. We can't stay. We're all going to die here." Riley pulled her sidearm, the M17, and pressed it into Mendez's hand. 15 rounds, enough to make the enemy work for it. "Make them remember you," she said. Mendez nodded, face set. "Go, I'll buy you time." They went. Behind them, Mendez opened fire. Single shots at first, deliberate, each one finding a target, then faster as the enemy closed in. The M4 joined in, full auto, burning through the magazine. Then silence. Riley didn't look back. They ran for another click before Kowalski started falling behind. He was limping, favoring his left leg. Riley hadn't noticed the wound before. A piece of shrapnel embedded in his thigh, blood running down into his boot. "Kowalski, move!" Saint shouted. "I'm trying." But he was slowing, each step more labored than the last. They made it 50 more meters before he collapsed. Saint hauled him up. "Come on, Marine, on your feet." Kowalski tried. He really did. But when he put weight on the leg, it buckled. He went down hard, face first in the sand. Saint tried to lift him. Kowalski screamed. "Leave me," he said, voice tight with pain. "You can't. I can't. Just leave me." Nobody gets left behind. "Saint!" Kowalski grabbed his vest, pulled him close. "You leave me or we all die. Those are the options, so make the call." Saint looked at Riley, then back at Kowalski. Then he made the call. Riley pulled her backup magazine from her vest, pressed it into Kowalski's hand. 30 rounds. "Make it count," she said. He nodded. "Go." They ran. Behind them, Kowalski's rifle barked. Once, twice, 3 times. Then a burst of return fire, a dozen AKs opening up at once. Then silence. Riley and Saint were alone. They ran until Riley's legs gave out. 3 clicks, maybe 4. Her lungs were on fire, her vision tunneling. She collapsed in the sand, gasping, unable to move. Saint pulled her up. "We can't stop. They're still coming." "I can't." "You can." His grip was iron. "Get up. Now." She got up. They walked. The sun climbed higher, turning the air into a physical weight. Riley's uniform was soaked with sweat, chafing against her skin. Her throat was sandpaper. She reached for her water bottle. Empty. She drunk it all during the firefight without realizing. "Here," Saint offered his canteen. "Half full, maybe a liter. You need drink." She drank. The water was hot, tasted like plastic and metal, but it was life. She forced herself to stop after 3 swallows, handed it back. They kept walking. The landscape was featureless, sand and gravel and heat shimmer. No landmarks, no reference points, just the sun overhead, a burning eye watching them die. Riley pulled out her compass, a backup she kept in her vest. The needle spun, settled. Southeast. That was the direction of the fob. 40 clicks. They'd made it maybe 5, 35 to go. She looked at Saint. He was limping now, blood soaking through his right pant leg. The shrapnel wound from the first explosion had opened up, and he was losing blood fast. "How bad?" she asked. "Bad enough." He didn't elaborate. They kept walking. Then Saint stopped. "You hear that?" Riley listened. At first, nothing. Then a sound like distant thunder. But the sky was clear. "What is that?" Saint turned, scanning the horizon. His face went pale. "Haboob." Riley followed his gaze. The western horizon had turned black. Not clouds. Sand. A wall of it, rising hundreds of meters into the air, blotting out the sky. A sandstorm. She'd heard about these from the veterans at the FOB. Walls of sand and dust that could travel at 70 kilometers an hour, strip paint off vehicles, scour exposed skin down to bone. Visibility dropped to 0. Temperatures inside the storm could hit 60 degrees. People died in haboobs, lost, suffocated, cooked alive. "Find cover," Saint shouted, but there was nothing. No rocks, no buildings, just open desert and the storm bearing down like the wrath of God. It hit like a freight train. 1 second Riley could see Saint 10 meters away. The next he was gone. The world vanished. Sand blasted her face, wormed into her eyes, her nose, her mouth. She couldn't breathe, couldn't see, couldn't hear anything but the howl of wind. She dropped to her knees, pulled her shamag over her face, and curled into a ball. The sand was everywhere, in her ears, in her hair, grinding between her teeth. It felt like being buried alive. Her mind flashed to training, survival school. What did they teach about sandstorms? Protect your airways, cover your face, get low, wait it out. But for how long? 5 minutes? An hour? Forever? Time stopped meaning anything. Riley existed in a bubble of wind, in sand, in suffocation. Her world shrank to the space inside her shamag, the desperate gasps of air through the fabric, the animal terror of drowning on dry land. Then, slowly, so slowly she almost didn't notice, the wind died. The howling faded to a moan, then a whisper, then nothing. Riley uncurled. The air was still brown with suspended dust, but she could see shapes again, vague outlines in the murk. She stood on shaking legs, every muscle screaming. Her whole body was caked in sand, a second skin of grit and dust. "Saint!" she called. Her voice was a croak. No answer. "Saint!" Movement. 20 meters away, a figure pulling itself out of a sand drift. Saint, alive, covered head to toe in dust that made him look like a ghost. They staggered toward each other, met in the middle. "You okay?" Riley asked. "Define okay." Saint wiped sand from his eyes. His face was a mask of dried blood and dust. "You?" Still standing. They looked around. The storm had erased everything. No tracks, no landmarks. The overturned Humvees were gone, buried under fresh dunes. Even the village had vanished, swallowed by the sand. Riley pulled out her compass. The case was cracked, but the needle still spun. She oriented herself, pointed southeast. FOB's that way, I think. Saint pulled out his own compass, the battered brass antique. He sighted along it, then looked at her bearing. You're off by 10 degrees. What? Storm must have thrown you off. FOB's there. He pointed slightly south of her original bearing. Riley checked her compass again. He was right. The magnetic north had shifted slightly, probably from all the metal debris in the area throwing off the needle. Without Saint's compass, without his experience, she would have walked in the wrong direction, would have missed the FOB by kilometers, would have died in the desert. Her ballistic computer was dead. Her GPS was dead. Her tablet was dead. All the technology she'd relied on, all the tools that made her a precision shooter, were gone. She had her rifle, her knife, and half a liter of water. And Saint. How far? She asked. Saint studied the sun, now low in the west. Late afternoon. We've been walking maybe 4 hours. Covered 5 clicks before the storm. Storm pushed us maybe 2 clicks east. So he did the math in his head. 38 clicks from home. 38 kilometers. Through hostile territory. No water, no comms, no support. Riley looked at him, at the blood soaking his leg, at the way he favored his right side, at the gray tinge to his skin that said shock was setting in. We're not going to make it, she said quietly. Saint met her eyes. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then he started walking southeast. Probably not, he said over his shoulder, but we're sure as hell going to try. Riley looked back the way they'd come. Somewhere out there, Mendez and Kowalski and Michigan and Hernandez were dead. Their bodies would be stripped, mutilated, displayed as trophies. She thought about the map on the wall, the careful planning, the ambush. This had been a trap from the beginning, and they'd walked right into it. She turned and followed Saint into the wasteland. Behind them, the sun sank toward the horizon, painting the desert the color of blood. The sun hit its zenith and turned the world into an oven. Riley's lips cracked. Her tongue felt like leather in her mouth. Saint's canteen was almost empty, maybe 2 swallows left. They walked in silence, conserving energy. Every step sent fresh pain through Riley's body. Her shoulders ached from the rifle. Her boots were full of sand, rubbing blisters into raw meat. Saint was worse. His limp had become a drag, leaving a trail in the sand behind him. Blood seeped through his pant leg in a slow, steady leak. Not arterial. If it were, he'd already be dead. But bad enough. We need to stop that bleeding, Riley said. We need to keep moving. Saint. We stop. We die. His voice was flat, final. 35 clicks. If we maintain 3 clicks an hour, we've got 12 hours of walking. Sun sets in 4. We walk through the night, we reach the fob by dawn. Riley did her own math. 3 clicks an hour meant they'd burn through their water in 3 hours. After that, dehydration would hit hard. Muscle cramps first, then confusion, then organ failure. They had maybe 6 hours before their bodies started shutting down. What about water? She asked. Saint pointed to a cluster of thorn bushes ahead, maybe half a click away. Those are jujube. Roots go deep. We dig, we might find moisture. Might? Desert doesn't give guarantees, Trigger. They reached the bushes 20 minutes later. Riley's hands were shaking from exertion. Her vision kept blurring at the edges. Saint knelt beside the largest bush, started digging with his knife. The sand was hot enough to burn bare skin. He dug for 10 minutes, going down maybe half a meter. Nothing. He moved to another bush, dug again. This time the sand turned dark, damp. There, Saint breathed. He dug deeper, exposing thick roots. He cut one, squeezed. A few drops of moisture appeared. Not water, not really. More like plant sap mixed with dirt. But it was wet. He held the root over his mouth, squeezed. The liquid dripped onto his cracked lips. He swallowed, grimaced. "Your turn." Riley took the root, squeezed. The liquid tasted like battery acid mixed with copper. She forced herself to swallow. Her stomach cramped. "How much of this can we drink?" she asked. "Not much. Too much will make you sick. But it's enough to buy us a few more hours." They extracted what moisture they could, maybe half a liter total, then kept walking. The sun tracked west, shadows lengthening. The temperature dropped from unbearable to merely brutal. Riley's mind started to wander. She thought about the FOB, about her bunk, about the lukewarm shower that never had enough pressure, about the mess hall with its greasy eggs and burnt coffee. Heaven. "Riley," she blinked. Saint was staring at her. "You zoned out. How long since you slept?" She tried to remember. They'd rolled out at 0500. The ambush happened around 800. The storm hit around 1300. It was maybe 1700 now. 36 hours since she'd last slept. "I'm fine." "You're hallucinating." "I'm not. You just called me Mom." Riley stopped walking. Had she? She couldn't remember. Saint pulled out the canteen, offered it to her. "Last of the water. Drink." "You need drink. That's an order." She drank. The water was hot, metallic, but it cleared her head. A little. "We're going to make it," Saint said. Not a question, a statement of fact. "You hear me, Trigger? We're going to make it." Riley wanted to believe him, but when she looked at his leg, at the steady drip of blood, she knew he was lying. He knew it too. They walked into twilight. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an hour, and Riley started shivering. Desert cold was different from any other cold. Dry, sharp, cutting through fabric like it wasn't there. Saint stopped suddenly, held up a fist. Riley froze. "What?" "Listen." At first she heard nothing, then engine noise. Faint, maybe 2 clicks away. "Technicals," Saint murmured. "At least 2, searching the grid." Riley scanned the horizon. There, headlights bouncing over dunes, moving in a search pattern. The enemy hadn't given up. They were hunting survivors. "We need to hide," she said. "Where?" Saint gestured at the empty desert. "There's nothing." But he was wrong. 50 meters ahead, a shallow wadi cut through the sand. A dried riverbed maybe 2 meters deep. Not much, but enough to break their silhouette. They ran, or tried to. Saint's leg gave out halfway. Riley caught him, pulled his arm over her shoulder, half carried him to the wadi. They slid down the sandy bank and pressed themselves flat. The engine noise grew louder. Riley pulled sand over herself, burying everything but her eyes in the muzzle of her rifle. Saint did the same. They became part of the landscape, invisible unless you stepped on them. The first technical passed 30 meters away. A pickup truck with a DSHK heavy machine gun mounted in the bed. 3 fighters visible, driver, gunner, and a spotter with binoculars. The truck slowed, engine idling. The spotter was scanning the desert with night vision. Riley held her breath. Her heart hammered against the sand. If they had thermal optics, she and Saint were dead. Human bodies radiated heat like beacons. But the truck kept moving, continuing its search pattern. The second technical followed a minute later. Same configuration. It passed even closer, 20 meters. Close enough that Riley could hear the fighters talking in Arabic. Laughing. They were enjoying this. The hunt. The trucks disappeared into the darkness, engine noise fading. Riley waited 5 minutes. 10. Then carefully extracted herself from the sand. Saint didn't move. "Saint?" No response. She crawled over, shook him. His skin was cold, too cold. "Saint!" His eyes fluttered open. "Me awake, just resting." "You passed out." "Resting," he insisted, but when he tried to sit up, he couldn't. His leg had stiffened. the wound crusting over with dried blood and sand. Riley checked the injury. The shrapnel was still embedded, a jagged piece of metal maybe 2 inches long. It had cut through muscle, possibly nicked the femoral artery. Every step was making it worse, pumping more blood out of his body. "I need to pull that out," she said. "No. Saint, you're bleeding out. And if you pull it, I bleed faster. That shrapnel's the only thing keeping the artery closed." He met her eyes. "You pull it out here, I die in minutes. Leave it in. I've got hours." "Hours to do what? You can barely walk." "Hours to get you home." He struggled to his feet, using his rifle as a crutch. "Come on, we're wasting time." They climbed out of the wadi and kept walking. But Saint's pace had slowed to a crawl. Every few minutes he had to stop, lean on his rifle, catch his breath. Riley did the math. At this rate, they'd cover maybe 1 click an hour. The fob was still 30 clicks away. They weren't going to make it. Midnight came. The stars emerged, brilliant and cold. Riley had never seen so many stars. No light pollution out here. Just the Milky Way stretching across the sky like a river of light. Saint used the stars to navigate. He'd point to Polaris, calculate their bearing, adjust course. No GPS, no compass, just constellations he'd memorized decades ago. "You learned this where?" Riley asked, trying to keep him talking, keep him conscious. "Boy Scouts," a weak smile. "Before that became uncool. My dad taught me. Said a man should know how to find his way home." "Did he serve?" "Vietnam, 2 tours. Came back with a Purple Heart and nightmares that lasted 30 years. Saint paused, breathing hard. "He died when I was 17, heart attack. Doctor said it was genetic. I think it was the war. Took 30 years to kill him, but it got him in the end." They walked in silence for a while. "Why'd you join?" Riley asked. "Same reason most of us do. Prove something. To him, to myself." Saint stopped, leaned on his rifle. His breathing was labored now, each inhale a struggle. "What about you?" "College money," Riley said. Then more honestly, "That and I wanted to be good at something. Really good. Top of the class. Best shot. Prove I belonged." "You proved it." "Did I?" Riley looked at her dead tablet, her broken GPS. "I can't navigate without a computer. Can't shoot without a calculator. Take away my tech, and I'm useless." "You made it this far. Because of you." "We made it this far," Saint corrected. "You kept moving after the ambush. Kept thinking. Kept fighting. That's not tech, Trigger. That's guts." A sound in the darkness. Not engines this time. Footsteps. They froze. Someone was moving out there. Close. Maybe 50 meters away. Walking slow, deliberate, sweeping side to side. A tracker, following their trail. Riley raised her rifle, centered the sights on the sound. Her finger tensed on the trigger. "Wait," Saint whispered. "Why?" "One shot, they know exactly where we are. Every fighter in 10 clicks converges on our position. So what do? We disappear." Saint pulled her down, started covering them with sand again. The same trick as before. Become part of the desert. Let the hunter walk past. The footsteps came closer. Riley could hear breathing now. Heavy, exhausted. The tracker was as tired as they were. Closer. 20 meters. 15. 10. Riley could see him now in the starlight. A lean figure in tactical gear, AK slung across his back, eyes scanning the ground. He was following their footprints, reading the story written in the sand. He stopped 5 meters away. Riley's finger was on the trigger. One shot, center mass. He'd be dead before he hit the ground. But Saint was right. That shot would bring every hostile in the area. The tracker knelt, studying the ground. He pulled out a flashlight, clicked it on. The beam swept over the sand. Inches from Riley's face. She held her breath. The beam moved away. The tracker stood, keyed his radio, spoke in Arabic. Riley couldn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. He'd lost the trail. He turned and walked back the way he'd come. Riley waited until the footsteps faded, then waited 5 more minutes, then carefully extracted herself from the sand. "That was close," she breathed. Saint didn't respond. "Saint?" She crawled over. He was unconscious again, pulse thready, skin cold and clammy. Shock was fully set in now. His body was shutting down, conserving resources, preparing to die. Riley shook him. "Saint, wake up! Come on, we need to move." His eyes opened halfway. "Tired." "I know, but we're close. Maybe 20 clicks. We can do this." "Can't." "You can. On your feet. That's an order, Master Sergeant." She pulled him up. He swayed, almost fell. She caught him, got under his arm, took half his weight. They walked. More accurately, Riley walked and dragged Saint with her. He was barely conscious, feet stumbling over the sand. Her own body was breaking down. Muscles cramped from dehydration. Vision blurred. Her hands were numb. But she kept moving. Because Saint had kept moving for her, had pulled her from the rubble, had taught her to survive. Now it was her turn. Dawn came with cruel beauty. The sky turned gold, then pink, then blue. The sun rose like a malevolent god, and with it came the heat. Riley's throat was sealed shut. She hadn't urinated in 12 hours, a bad sign. Her body had nothing left to spare. Every drop of moisture was being rationed for critical organs. Saint was worse. He'd stopped responding to questions an hour ago. Just kept walking on autopilot, one foot in front of the other, eyes glassy. The wound had stopped bleeding, another bad sign. It meant he didn't have enough blood pressure left to bleed. They crested a dune, and Riley saw it. Water. A lake shimmering in the distance, surrounded by palm trees. Blue water reflecting the sky. Paradise. She knew what it was. Knew it was a mirage. Heat shimmer creating the illusion of water where none existed. But her brain didn't care. Her brain saw water and screamed for it. She started running. "Riley, stop!" Saint's voice, distant, urgent. But she couldn't stop. The lake was right there. She could see it, smell it. She ran 50 meters before her legs gave out. She collapsed, face first in burning sand. When she looked up, the lake was gone. Saint collapsed beside her, breathing in ragged gasps. "Mirage," he said. "Not real." "I know." But she'd run anyway. Wasted precious energy chasing a phantom. She wanted to cry, but she had no tears left. "How much farther?" she asked. Saint pulled out his compass, sighted. 15 clicks, maybe less. 15 kilometers. Riley did the math. At their current pace, 6 more hours. 6 hours under the sun with no water. They'd never make it. She looked at Saint. His skin had taken on a yellow tinge. Jaundice. His kidneys were failing. "Leave me," he said. "No." "Riley." "No." She grabbed his vest, pulled him close. "You don't get to quit. Not now. Not after everything. I'm slowing you down. I don't care." "You should." His voice was soft. "One of us can still make it. Tell them what happened. Warn them about the ambush. Stop the attack on the FOB." Riley had forgotten about that. The map on the wall. The enemy knew their patrol routes, their defenses. They were planning something big. If she didn't warn the FOB, more soldiers would die. But that meant leaving Saint. "I can't," she said. "You can. You have to." He pressed something into her hand, his compass. "Take this. Stay on bearing 135. You'll hit the FOB by noon." "Saint, go." Riley looked at the compass, then at Saint, then at the empty desert ahead. She stood up, took 3 steps, stopped. "No," she said. "We go together or not at all." She pulled him to his feet. He was dead weight now, barely able to stand. "You're going to get us both killed," he said. "Then we die together." They walked. The sun climbed higher. Riley's vision started playing tricks. She'd see things in the heat shimmer, people, vehicles, buildings, only to have them dissolve when she got closer. Hallucinations. Her brain was cooking, literally overheating from the sun. She kept walking. Saint had stopped talking. He just moved when she moved, stopped when she stopped. A puppet with cut strings. Then she heard it. A rifle shot. Distant, maybe 2 clicks away. She dropped, pulling Saint down with her. They lay flat in the sand, scanning for the shooter. Another shot. Closer this time. The round kicked up sand 30 meters to their left. Not random. Someone was ranging them. Riley spotted the glint, sunlight reflecting off a scope. Northwest. 800 meters out. Ridge of rock jutting from the sand. The Cobra. The enemy sniper Saint had mentioned back at the fob. The ghost who'd been killing coalition forces for months. They'd found his hides, his spent brass, even his scat, but never the man himself. Until now. Another shot. This one hit 10 meters away. He was walking his fire in, getting the range. Riley pulled her rifle up, tried to sight through the scope, but her hands were shaking too badly. The crosshairs danced across the target area. "I can't hold steady," she said. "Breathe." "I can't." "Riley," Saint's hand on her shoulder, "listen to me. You don't need the computer. You don't need the calculator. You just need to remember what I taught you." She closed her eyes, felt the wind on her face. Northeast, maybe 5 knots. Temperature was maybe 45 degrees. Range was 800 meters, give or take. She opened her eyes, settled the crosshairs on the ridge, led the target by 2 mils for wind. Breathe. The world went quiet. No wind, no heat, just her, the rifle, and the target. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked. The round flew. Through the scope, she saw dust puff from the rock, 6 inches low. The Cobra returned fire. His round snapped past her head, so close she felt the pressure wave. Riley adjusted. Up 6 inches. Let a bit more for wind. Fired. This time the dust puff came from the Cobra's position, right on target, but he didn't fall. He'd moved. Smart. 2 more shots came back, both near misses. "He's playing with us," Riley said. "Yeah," Saint's voice was weak. "He wants us alive. For a reason." "What reason?" "Bait. He's using us to draw in rescue." Riley understood. The enemy had learned from past operations. Coalition forces wouldn't leave soldiers behind. If Saint and Riley could call for help, if they could activate an emergency beacon, a rescue team would come. Helicopters, maybe air support, right into the Cobra's trap. "We need to move," she said. "Where?" "He's got the high ground. We move, he tracks us." "Then we don't move. We wait for dark." "We don't have that long." Saint's breathing was shallow now, each inhale a struggle. "Hour, maybe 2. The Cobra fired again. This round hit their water bottle, the empty one they discarded 20 meters back. It exploded in a spray of plastic. A message. "I can hit what I aim for. You're alive because I want you alive." Riley felt rage building, pure, white-hot anger. This bastard had hunted them for kilometers, had let them suffer, had played with them like a cat with wounded mice. "Screw this," she muttered. "Riley." She stood up, fully exposed. Target. The Cobra didn't shoot. "You want me?" she shouted into the desert. "Come get me." Silence. Then movement on the ridge. A figure stood. Range, 800 meters. Too far for an accurate pistol shot, just far enough that a sniper could take their time. The Cobra raised his rifle. Not shooting, signaling. Riley understood. He wanted her to come to him. "This is a trap," Saint said. "I know. You go up there, you die. Maybe, or maybe I kill him first." Riley checked her rifle. 8 rounds left. "Either way, this ends." She started walking toward the ridge. Behind her, Saint called out, "Riley!" She didn't stop. The Cobra waited. The ridge rose 30 meters from the desert floor, all jagged rock and loose scree. Riley approached slowly, rifle up, scanning for movement. The Cobra had vanished into the rocks, but she knew he was there, watching, waiting. Her plan was simple. Get close enough that his range advantage disappeared. Force him into close quarters where her M17 sidearm would be as effective as his rifle. Stupid plan, but the only one she had. The slope was treacherous. Loose stones shifted under her boots, threatening to send her tumbling. Her hands were raw from crawling through sand, fingers bleeding where she gripped the hot rock. Halfway up, a shot rang out. The round sparked off stone 2 feet from her head. Warning shot. Riley froze, pressed against the rock face. "You are persistent," a voice called down. Accented English. Educated. "Most die in the desert. But you keep coming." Riley didn't respond. Talking meant giving away her exact position. "Your friend," the voice continued. "The old one. He is dying, yes? I can see him from here. Maybe 30 minutes, maybe less." Riley's jaw clenched. "Don't engage. Keep moving." She shifted right, using an outcrop for cover. Climbed higher, another shot. This one closer, intentionally missing by inches. "I could have killed you 10 times, the Cobra shouted. "But where is the sport in that? You understand sport, yes? The hunt?" Riley reached a ledge, pulled herself up. She was maybe 20 meters from the top now, close enough to see the Cobra's hide. A natural depression in the rock, perfect overwatch position. "Your technology failed you," the voice said. "Your computers, your radios, all that American superiority, and you are just meat in the sand like everyone else." Riley's hand brushed against something on the ledge. Broken mirror. She picked it up, a shard maybe 3 inches across. An idea formed. She angled the mirror, caught the sun, directed the reflected beam toward the Cobra's position. A flash of light, blinding bright, aimed right at where his scope would be. The Cobra cursed in Arabic. Riley moved. Fast, scrambling up the last 20 meters while he was blinded, using every handhold, every crack in the rock. Her fingernails tore, blood ran down her palms. She reached the top, rolled behind cover. The Cobra was 10 meters away, rubbing his eyes, temporarily blinded by the reflected sunlight. His rifle, a Dragunov SVD, lay beside him. Riley pulled her M17, took aim. The Cobra kicked the rifle toward her. It clattered across the stone, stopping at her feet. "Pick it up," he said, blinking away the spots in his vision. His eyes were dark, calm, no fear. "You came all this way. You earned it." Riley kept her pistol trained on him. "What's the game?" "No game. You won." He spread his hands, showing empty palms. "I underestimated you. Most Americans, they rely on the machines, cannot think without the computer telling them what to think. But you," he smiled, "you adapted. You murdered my friends. Yes, as you would murder mine, given the chance. This is war. We are soldiers." He nodded toward the Dragunov. "Take it. Kill the old one quickly. It is mercy. Then walk home. Tell your people the Cobra is dead. They will believe you. You will be a hero." Riley's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot, center mass, end this. But something was wrong. This was too easy. The Cobra was too calm. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why let me up here? Why not just kill me from a distance?" The Cobra's smile widened. "Because I want you to see." He pointed southwest. Riley risked a glance, keeping her pistol trained on him. In the distance, maybe 5 kilometers away, she saw them. Technicals. At least a dozen, moving in formation toward a specific point on the horizon. Toward the FOB. "The attack," she breathed. "Yes, your old one and you were bait. Draw out the quick reaction force. When they come to save you, my brothers will be waiting. RPGs, IEDs, ambush." He shrugged. "Many Americans will die today. More than just your patrol. Riley's blood ran cold. The map on the wall, the careful planning, this had all been orchestrated. The village was bait. The ambush was bait. She and Saint were bait. You see, the Cobra said, your death changes nothing. You live, you die, the result is the same. So I give you a choice. Take the rifle, kill me if you wish. But your friends at the FOB, they die anyway. Unless I warn them. Yes, unless. He glanced at his watch. You have maybe 40 minutes before the attack begins. Can you make 5 kilometers in 40 minutes? In your condition? Riley's mind raced. 5 clicks. Her legs were destroyed. She'd been walking for 36 hours without food, barely any water. She could barely stand, let alone run. But the FOB had 200 soldiers. Good people. Friends. She had to try. The Cobra saw her decision in her eyes. Ah, the hero, he nodded approvingly. This is good. This is why I let you live, to see what you choose. Riley lowered her pistol, grabbed the Dragunov. The Cobra made no move to stop her. She turned and ran. Riley half ran, half fell down the ridge. The Dragunov was heavier than her Mark 22, awkward, unfamiliar. But it worked. That's all that mattered. She hit the desert floor and started running. Her legs screamed. Her lungs burned. Every breath felt like inhaling broken glass. 5 kilometers, 40 minutes. She'd never make it, but she ran anyway. Saint was where she'd left him, slumped in the sand. She dropped beside him, checked his pulse. Weak, thready, but alive. Saint, the FOB, they're attacking in 40 minutes. I have to warn them. His eyes fluttered open. Go. I can't carry you and run fast enough. I know. He pressed his compass into her hand. Go. Save them. Riley looked at the compass, then at Saint, then at the horizon where the fob lay. She stood, started running. Riley! She stopped, looked back. Saint raised one hand, not waving, saluting. She returned it. Then she ran. The desert blurred past. Her vision tunneled. She focused on one thing, the bearing. 135 degrees, straight line to the fob. She ran until her legs gave out. Got up, ran more, fell again, crawled, stood, ran. The sun beat down. No water, no rest, just movement. She thought about her team, about Mendez and Kowalski and Michigan and Hernandez, dead because of her, because she'd trusted the technology, because she hadn't listened to Saint. She ran faster. The Dragunov bounced against her back. The M17 dug into her hip. Her whole body was pain. She didn't care. 3 clicks. 2. Her legs gave out completely. She crawled. 100 meters. 200. Stood. Stumbled forward. In the distance, shapes appeared. Vehicles. Buildings. The FOB. Riley tried to shout. Her throat was too dry. No sound came out. She staggered forward, waving her arms. A guard on the perimeter spotted her, raised his rifle. She kept coming. More guards appeared. Rifles trained on her. She collapsed 50 meters from the wire. Boots, running toward her. Voices. Don't shoot, it's Cross. Hands on her. Lifting. Water pressed to her lips. She coughed, spat it out. Attack, she croaked. Technicals. Ambush. Southwest. Coming. What? Attack. She grabbed the medic's vest. Southwest. Maybe 10 minutes. QRF is walking into a trap. The medic keyed his radio. Talk, this is gate 3. Cross is back. She's saying, Get on the guns, Riley screamed, finding her voice. They're coming. Alarms started blaring. Riley collapsed. The fob erupted into controlled chaos. Soldiers sprinted to fighting positions. Machine guns swung toward the southwest perimeter. The QRF, already spooled up for a rescue mission, redirected to defensive positions. Riley sat in the TOC, wrapped in a thermal blanket, an IV in her arm. Captain Vickers stood beside her, studying a map. "How many?" he asked. 12 technicals, maybe 50 fighters. They know our defenses. They've been watching." "When?" Riley checked the clock on the wall. 5 minutes, maybe less. Vickers keyed the radio. "All stations, this is TOC actual. We have credible threat of attack from the southwest. Heavy weapons free. I say again, weapons free." The FOB's defensive positions were solid. HESCO barriers, wire, machine gun nests, and a Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher on the southwest corner. If the enemy came straight in, they'd walk into a kill zone. But these weren't amateurs. They'd planned this. Riley stood, grabbed her rifle, a loner M4. "I'm going to the southwest position. You can barely walk." "Don't care." She headed for the door. Vickers didn't stop her. Riley climbed the ladder to fighting position 3, a sandbagged bunker with a M240B machine gun. The gunner was a specialist she didn't know, maybe 20 years old. "You cross?" he asked. "Yeah." "They really coming?" "Yeah." He chambered around. "Good. I was getting bored." Riley scanned the horizon through the rifle scope. Nothing yet, just desert and heat shimmer. Then she saw them. Dust clouds, moving fast. Technicals spread in a loose line, approaching from the southwest exactly as she'd predicted. "Contact!" she called out. "Southwest, 12 vehicles, range 3,000 meters. The TOC rogered. "All stations, stand by." The technicals closed. 2,000 meters, 1,500. Riley centered her scope on the lead vehicle. Through the magnification, she could see the fighters clearly. AKS, RPGS, DSHK heavy machine guns. 1,000 meters. "Any time now, sir," the specialist muttered. 800 meters. The MK-19 opened up first. A string of 40mm grenades arcing through the air, landing among the technicals. The first one took a direct hit, exploded in a ball of fire. The rest scattered, spreading out, returning fire. Riley picked her targets. Driver of Technical 2. Squeeze. He slumped. The truck swerved, flipped. Gunner on Technical 5. Squeeze. Down. The M240B beside her roared to life, tracers reaching out across the desert. The specialist was good, walking his fire across the enemy line, shredding tires and men. The technicals tried to close, but the overlapping fields of fire were too much. 3 more exploded. 2 retreated. The rest bogged down in the kill zone, taking fire from multiple positions. Riley's magazine ran dry. She reloaded, kept shooting. A technical broke through, racing toward the wire. The gunner was firing the DSHK, rounds sparking off the HESCO barriers. Riley switched targets, centered on the gunner, fired, miss, high, adjusted, fired again. The gunner dropped. The technical hit the wire, got tangled. Someone jumped out with an RPG. Riley shot him. The battle lasted 5 minutes. When it was over, 8 technicals were burning wrecks. The rest had retreated, leaving their dead. Riley lowered her rifle. Her hands were shaking again, not from fear, from exhaustion. "We got 'em," the specialist said, grinning. "We got 'em." Riley nodded. They'd won, but at what cost? 2 hours later, a Black Hawk lifted off from the fob. Riley sat in the door, rifle across her lap, watching the desert scroll past below. They'd found Mendez and Kowalski, or what was left of them. The bodies had been mutilated, displayed as trophies. They'd found Michigan and Hernandez, barely recognizable. Now they were going for Saint. The pilot followed Riley's directions, landing near the ridge where she'd left him. The rotors kicked up a storm of sand. Riley jumped out before the skids touched down. She ran to where she'd left Saint. He was gone. "No," she breathed. Boot prints in the sand, heading northeast, staggering, uneven. Saint had gotten up, had kept walking. Riley followed the trail. She found him 100 meters away, face down in the sand. She dropped beside him, rolled him over, his eyes open. Did you warn them? Yeah, we won. He smiled, blood on his teeth. Good. Medevac's here. We're getting you out. Riley, his hand found hers. I'm done. No, you're not done. It's okay. His grip tightened. You made it. That's what matters. I couldn't have done it without you. Yeah, you could have. His breathing was shallow now, each word a struggle. You just needed to believe it. The medics arrived, dropped beside them, started working. But Riley knew. She could see it in Saint's eyes. Thank you, she said. For what? Teaching me to think like the desert. Saint smiled. Mean, patient, always. His eyes closed. The medics worked for 10 minutes. Then one of them looked at Riley and shook his head. Master Sergeant Elias St. Graves was gone. 3 weeks later, Riley stood in the FOB briefing room. Her uniform was crisp, her boots shined. The cuts and bruises had healed. The sun damage would scar. Captain Vickers stood at the front of the room. Intelligence confirms the enemy was planning a major offensive. If Cross hadn't warned us, they would have hit us during shift change. Casualties would have been catastrophic. He turned to Riley. The lives you saved, the intelligence you brought back. That matters, Sergeant. Riley nodded, but all she could think about was the lives she hadn't saved. Mendez, Kowalski, Michigan, Hernandez, Saint. Later, alone in her bunk, she pulled out Saint's compass. The brass was worn smooth, the needle still true. On the back, engraved in tiny letters, Trust your gut, Dad. Riley closed her eyes. She could still hear Saint's voice. You don't need the computer. You don't need the calculator. You just need to remember what I taught you. She'd remembered, and it had been enough. Riley opened her locker, pulled out her tablet. The screen was still cracked from the IED blast. She turned it on. It flickered, showing corrupted data. She powered it down. Then she pulled out a notebook and a pencil. Old school. She started writing. Everything that had happened, every lesson Saint had taught her, every mistake she'd made. So the next sniper wouldn't have to learn the hard way. So Saint's lessons would live on. Outside, the desert wind howled. Mean, patient, hungry. But Riley wasn't afraid anymore. She'd learned to think like the desert, and the desert had taught her to survive.